Well, Jody, should I go ahead and introduce us?
Oh, sure. And yep, I'm seeing comments come through. Hello, everybody. Appreciate it. It helps us know that there are people watching because we can't see it.
And the great thing about LinkedIn comments is that everyone has the best smiley face from LinkedIn, so it's helpful.
Oh, wow. Look, everyone saying hello. Thank you so much.
It's great.
Yeah, it's great to
Hello,
see you.
Nick. Hi, everyone. Hi, Kia. Well, a very warm welcome from whichever side of the world you're joining us from, morning or evening. We're very glad to have you here. This is the Path to AI Maturity. I'm Lawrence Evans. I'm the CEO of Reputation Leaders. We are a global thought leadership firm, and we did the research with LXT for this wonderful topic, which you'll be hearing about today. Jody is our key presenter and guest. As you can see from this title slide, Jody is the VP of Marketing for LXT, which is a world leader in AI training data. And she'll be sharing some of the results of the recent report and the research with us, bringing not only this research, but also 20 years worth of executive experience in B2B marketing and technology. So, Jody, it's been quite a gold rush on AI, with NVIDIA hitting nearly 1 trillion valuation, with every company that mentions AI in an investor call seeing their stock go up. It's hard to believe that it was only recently that ChatGPT was launched and immediately gathered 100 million followers. So this is an incredibly timely webinar. Thank you for sharing this data publicly with us. And I guess I'm looking forward to the results, as you are. It's one of the key results that really jumped out at me was that 87% of companies are willing to spend more for high quality data. So we're looking forward to hearing the results today. Do you want to say a little more about yourself and why LXT has done this?
Yeah, so hi everyone. Great to see you here. Thanks for taking the time. So we were really excited to work on some thought leadership with Lawrence and his team and really try to showcase, what is going on in the enterprise when it comes to AI adoption. And I'll get into more around the goals for the survey. But, AI has been top of mind for a lot of executives within the enterprise for several years now. And we wanted to just sort of uncover, what is going on? What are some of the trends that we're seeing across various industries? And how are companies actually gaining maturity? So we'll dive into that in the research. But first of all, I want to thank Lawrence for hosting with me today. Really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for joining. This is our first LinkedIn Live ever. So we're getting to learn this technology and, hopefully it'll all go well, but bear with us if we have any glitches. So yeah, I'm really excited to share these insights, and I'm just going to be sharing the highlights. I just want to mention that this report is available on our website. So at lxt.ai, you'll find the full report with all the findings. And so I'm going to be touching on just some of the highlights. And with regards to Reputation Leaders, they partnered with us very closely on this. We've been working on this research now for 2 years. This is the second report that we've issued. And the timeline is usually, we do the research in the fall of the previous year, and then we launch it in February. So this report is from February of this year. And I've budgeted about 45 minutes for this webinar, but the presentation part will only be about 25 minutes or so, and then we'll have time for questions. So let's go ahead and jump in. Before I get to the research, though, I do want to share a bit about LXT because I imagine that many of you don't know who we are. So as Lawrence mentioned, we are an AI data provider, and we provide data as a managed service. We've been doing that for over 12 years, and we work in over 150 countries. And we have coverage for over 750 language locales, which I think is pretty unique for companies in our space. So we truly are a global company. And one of the things that we know about our clients is that they really value high quality data. And so we provide 100% quality guarantee on our data. And I won't go into that in detail, but if that's something that you're interested in learning more about, you can always reach out to us and we'd be happy to tell you more about that. And I just want to brag about my team for a little bit here because it's pretty special to find a company that has over 100 years of combined experience in their industry or domain. And that's what we have here at LXT. And here's some photos of people who you'd be working with if you decide to work with us. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find that amount of experience at another company in our space. So there's a whole
And I think
directory.
geographically it represents Australia to Austin. It's the globe, isn't it? There's people
Oh,
from all parts
it's
of the world.
everywhere. It's pretty amazing. And if you go to our website, there's a whole directory of these experts with bios and everything, so you can learn all about them. So, all right. So enough about LXT. We're going to jump into the research and first talk about goals. So when we set about to do this research, we really had several goals in mind, and I kind of touched on this earlier, but we really wanted to get an understanding of progress and adoption of AI in the enterprise. So this research specifically focuses on enterprise companies. I want you to keep that in mind because that's just a key point of this survey. And then because we are in the training data space, we wanted to understand some of the trends there. And then we also wanted to look at those trends by maturity level, which I'll explain later, and by industry. So I'll be showing you kind of some splits by those items as well. All right, so with the methodology, we had 315 senior decision makers, and this was about 115 more than last year, so we expanded the sample size. And these are also senior decision makers. So over half of the respondents this year were from the C-suite. The other thing is that we required them to have AI experience. So we wanted to make sure that these are relevant people that are responding to this survey. And we filtered by company size. As I said, we wanted to make sure that respondents were from the enterprise. So we looked at companies, we asked them to make sure they had revenue over 100 million and company size greater than 500 employees. And as I said, we worked with reputation leaders on this research. Now, keep in mind that the research was done in the fall of 2022. This was before anybody knew that ChatGPT was a thing, that ChatGPT was going to launch. So it didn't factor into our survey at all. So you won't see any mention of ChatGPT or generative AI. We've had questions about this, so I just wanted to clarify that because the report and the research was all done before the launch. And so you won't see a mention of that. Now, I would imagine, I know actually, for next time, it will feature in the report because it's been such a phenomenon. And I would imagine that with the addition of generative AI, what we're going to see is an even greater shift in AI maturity because companies are rushing to implement AI now that it's such a dominant technology in the industry. So Lawrence, is there anything you wanted to add here as well?
Sure. Just to say that not only was this a very senior sample, but what we did was we took the industries that people responded from and we weighted those industries so that they were weighted to what's called the US NACS industry weighting, which means that the industries were representative of the US economy and B2B firms in general. But you raise a great point. If people have questions either about this research or how it relates to things that they're seeing in the marketplace at the moment, feel free to add those into the comments. We'll have plenty of time to address those at the end.
All right. So another piece of the survey that's key here is this model. So this is what we use to anchor our research. And this is the Gartner AI Maturity Model that was launched in 2019, I believe. And what we asked respondents to do was indicate where they think their company falls on this maturity model. So let's break it down. We start with the level 1, which is awareness level. And this is really where companies are just starting to think about AI. Where could they implement it within their business? What are some of the use cases that would apply to their business? So that's the earliest phase. Then they move to the active phase, and this is where they've decided on those use cases and they're starting to experiment. And then they move to the operational phase. Sorry about the wrapping there. It didn't quite work, but that says operational. And this is where AI is in production. It's creating value. It's creating ROI. Then they move to the systemic phase. They've taken the AI deployments and they're deploying it across an entire department or a function within their organization. And then they move to level 5, which is transformational. This is the holy grail. This is where AI is part of the whole business DNA. One thing I want to mention on this is this distinction that we put on the model is something that we did. It's not Gartner's breakdown, when you look at the color coding here, you see that we've coded the level 1 and 2 as what we call experimenters, versus levels 3 to 5 as maturing. And that's a distinction that will come up later. So I just wanted to call that out. We layered that on top. And the reason we did that is we thought it was really important to understand the characteristics of companies that are earlier stage in their maturity versus later stage. And the pivot point, the part that's really important for a business, is when they move from experimentation to production, because that's when they're actually they've got it right and they're getting ROI from the technology. So that's an important distinction. The other piece I wanted to point out here is that this is a self-assessment. So we ask companies to indicate where they think they fall on this chart. And if you brought in an independent consultant, a third party, into that organization, they might have a totally different viewpoint on where the company is. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. And, just despite that fact, I think it's very good directional data to kind of see where companies feel they are in this. But I just wanted to point that out, that it is a self-assessment. All right, so now we're going to get into some of the highlights here. And here is where we landed this year when it comes to AI maturity. So 48% of organizations rate themselves at the highest levels of AI maturity. So breaking it down, we have 18% who feel that they're still in that awareness phase, really just getting started. We have 33% that are experimenting. And then we move to, so that's 52% in sort of that experimenter phase. Then we move to operational. We've got 25%, 14% at systemic, and 9% that say that they've deployed it across their entire company. That's really part of their DNA. And then if we look at how this compares to last year, we see an 8% increase in AI maturity. Now, it looks like a big jump, but I do want to mention, and Lawrence, if you have any views on this, but there is probably a 3% margin of error. So keep that in mind. It may not be, in reality, it may not be as big a shift, but I think it's still good directional data to be able to say that we're seeing an improvement.
Yeah, I think what this shows is that people have moved from the, oh, let's dip our toe in the water, to we're actually going to put some use cases in and see what the results are. And in some cases, that's generated successes and some failures, but more people have become either operational or systemic. I think the thing that stood out for me was the benefits of getting to transformational. So IBM did a study just last month, for example, which showed the ROI on AI for firms that are at that transformational stage was about 13%, which is twice the ROI for firms that are only just started on that journey. So, companies are accelerating along that path, but the potential benefits for getting to systemic and transformational are really high.
Yeah, and we're actually seeing that when you look at this chart, we're seeing that there are fewer companies at the active stage. So last year we had 45%, this year we have 33%. That's a big jump. So what that tells us is that companies are improving. They're actually moving to that maturing phase. So that's a really great trend to see. But one thing I will say is that here at the transformational level, we still have only single digits. So there's still a lot of room for companies to move into those higher levels of maturity. All right, so now moving into the budget here. So we wanted to ask, how much are you budgeting for AI in your organization? And keep in mind that when we fielded the study, the economy was on everybody's mind. It was a concern at that time. It's still a concern. But what we see is nearly half of organizations are spending 76 million or more on AI. So there's still a really strong investment there. And then we broke that down. So we looked at where people are sort of distributing that budget. And when we look under the hood, what we see is there's pretty even split across the board. So everything from product development to software to hardware, people are kind of placing their bets evenly when it comes to their budget, because they haven't quite figured out where they should be doubling down. And so I thought that was sort of an interesting trend.
That is interesting, and it corroborates that people are moving from active to operational because they're trying many things and seeing what will give them the best benefits. Some cases that's operational, some it's productive, some it's new product development. We'll see some of the use cases that are the highest returns later on, but companies are trying AI for many things.
That's right. And so then we went into what is really driving all that investment. So what are companies using AI to do? And what really rose to the top here was the desire to be more agile and flexible, as well as trying to use AI to anticipate customer needs and build better customer experiences, and then also driving innovation. And one of the things that was interesting here for me is that cost savings actually was lower on the list. It was tied at the bottom. And for me, AI is all about automation, and so driving cost savings comes out of that. And it is an important driver, but it's not a top driver for companies that we talked to in the survey. But what businesses are really using AI to do here is use it to quickly respond to market trends and drive innovation.
So Jody, a great example of that is Walmart on the supply chain side. So they are using AI to align their warehouse inventory in real time to real-time shopping demand, and making sure that product gets shipped almost as the shopping is happening. And I think the ability to manage, supply chains or customer experience, etc., it shows that actually the focus, as you can see, is actually on speed and on competitive advantage more than cost, which is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they're definitely a leader. So if you're in retail, they're one to follow for sure. All right. So then we wanted to understand, how does AI help companies navigate economic downturns? Again, we knew that this was top of mind for people. And so we saw similar themes around business agility, improving resilience, and bringing new products to market quickly. So companies are really focused on using AI to stay ahead of the competition, especially during uncertain market conditions.
A quick comment on that, Jody. McKinsey also produced a study which said that companies who are leading on AI are able to allocate their capital and their talent and their resources 4 times faster than the average company. So I think as you emphasize agility, it is the ability to respond to a very dynamic environment. Interesting, again, that cost savings is relatively low at 37%, even during an economic downturn.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a pretty big stat there that you just threw out 4 times. That's a pretty massive improvement. All right. So then what we did was we wanted to understand which types of applications are the most widely deployed. And we see here that NLP is really coming to the top, along with predictive analytics. And this was so we sort of asked them about all of these different types of applications. And what we're seeing is companies are really taking advantage of all the language data that they have in their organizations, everything from contracts to sentiment analysis on social media posts to all the knowledge management tools that they have, and really using NLP to try to unlock all of that. And the other thing you see here is just the wide range of applications that companies are deploying. So that just shows how widely applicable AI is within the enterprise.
Jody, this was done, as we'll remind people on the webinar, in Q4 of last year. And this was before ChatGPT and all the large language models that obviously are using natural language processing, conversational AI, of course, making them appear more human. Do you see that trend continuing? Do you expect this to be the case in the future?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think I can't wait to see this slide next year because I think we're just going to see a lot more deployment there. I think companies are just racing now to take advantage of this technology. So then in the next slide here, sorry, there we go. We asked them, what are the applications that are generating the highest ROI? And what I want to mention here is that this was actually an open-ended question. So people could say anything. And the list was very, very long. And so our friends at Reputation Leaders actually coded the responses into different buckets. So I'm not showing you the whole list here, because if I did that, it would run off the page. You can go find that in the report itself. But what we're seeing come to the top here again is conversational AI, security, NLP, and speech. So similar themes here. but there's just a lot of variety, and I put some more examples down here around financial reporting, search, fraud detection, computer vision. So again, a lot of variability. So what's great about that is that not only are these applications being deployed, but they're also generating ROI, which is clearly what companies want. So we're seeing just a lot of different types of applications generate ROI, which is a really strong trend.
Well, also, Jody, managing risks, because as you point out here, fraud detection and cybersecurity is a very big area, isn't it? And one that companies are having to manage, perhaps even more so in an age of AI.
Very true. And so clearly these solutions are working for people. And so, those trends I'm sure will continue. All right. So then I mentioned earlier when we started that we wanted to look at some of these trends by industry. I know this is a bit of an eye chart. Again, that's why you want to go look at the report, download that. But here, we're seeing in orange across these different industries, we're seeing NLP come to the top, but we're also seeing things like predictive analytics. So what this kind of information is helpful for is really looking at, for example, if you're in financial services, what are my peers deploying? What should I be deploying within my organization? So this can give you some of that information. But also, if you're building an AI solution and you're targeting some of these industries, it can help you sort of decide which markets you should be focused on. Now we're going to move into looking at failure rates. And what our respondents told us was that 46% of AI projects fail. And this is actually a good news story. So for those of you who have been in AI for a while, you may know that Gartner has said in the past that 85% of projects fail. So if our respondents are saying only 46% are failing, that's a great story, right? That's a big improvement. And the other thing we see here on the right is that as a company matures, their failure rate goes down. If you look at the difference between the awareness phase at 66% and systemic and transformational phase at 31%, that's a really huge delta. And so that just gives you more, impetus to want to move to that mature level, because your pilots are going to work better. When you get to production, you're going to have less failure rates as well. And it's something that you would expect to see as companies mature in their journey. And then we took that and we looked at by industry. So you can see here that professional services and manufacturing supply chain have the lowest failure rates. And that also corresponds to higher levels of AI maturity. So you can see that manufacturing is saying 63% of their industry, they are at the maturing phase, and 67% for professional services. And that makes sense, right? Because as I said earlier, as you improve your failure rates, then you're improving your maturity levels as well.
What do you think, Jody, that the failure rates are higher for retail and financial services? Is that coming out of COVID-19, where companies had to make a lot of really quick changes to e-commerce, and perhaps the customer experience wasn't what it was meant to be? But do you have any theories about why the failure rates are higher for certain industries?
You stumped me, Lawrence. I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know. And it would be interesting to kind of dive deeper into that and understand, what's going on there. Hard to tell. All right. So then we asked about the types of machine learning that companies are using. And you can see here that at the awareness phase, they're really experimenting across supervised learning, semi-supervised learning, and unsupervised learning. So they're really, testing out all those different methods. But as they get to the higher levels of maturity, they're really leaning into supervised learning, where they're relying on annotated data. And we then asked, what are the data strategies that support your AI initiatives? And again, we saw a focus on annotation. We saw a focus on data collection, and then some on synthetic data. The other thing I want to point out here is that only 18% said that their data strategy is still in development. And that's a really important point. What we're seeing is that the vast majority of companies do have an AI data strategy. And that's really the underpinning of your AI strategy. My boss loves to say, if you don't have an AI data strategy, you don't have an AI strategy. because data is really what fuels the technology. So that's a good trend that we're seeing there. And then we broke that down by experimenters and maturing. And what we're seeing here is that as companies mature, they're really leaning into the annotation strategy. So making sure they have annotated data. And they're moving away from unannotated data. You see only 8% are using that. And they're more likely to have a data strategy because only 16% say that their data strategy is still in development. So then we wanted to know about what's the value of investing in this high quality training data, and how do companies think about that? And so what really came to the top here is operational efficiency. So companies are really looking at the fact that if you're using high quality training data, it's helping them to improve their productivity. But we also saw that it improves their success rate of their AI programs, and it actually does drive down costs, because if you're using higher quality data to start, you're not having to rework your data as a result. So they really see that investment in multiple ways. And as a result of that, they're actually willing to spend more for that. So you stole my thunder a little bit, Lawrence, at the beginning, but here you go. Here it is again.
This is the money chart, right? You spend more on higher quality data, you get higher quality AI.
Yeah. So we asked, are you willing to spend more money to get higher quality data? And 87% said they would, which is huge. They understand that the quality of their input drives the quality of their AI. And normally, I don't think people would really admit that they're willing to spend more for things. I mean, who wants to admit to that? But in this case, they get it. I mean, they understand the value of that investment to the success of their AI projects. All right. So as a result of that, what we asked, are your needs for training data going to increase over the next 2 to 5 years? Are they going to remain the same? What do you think? And we see overwhelmingly that they will either increase or remain the same. And no one thought they were going to decrease. So everyone understands they're going to need data, and they even think that's going to increase. And as they get to the higher levels of maturity here, systemic and transformational, it's pretty obvious, 82% say that the need will increase. So that makes a lot of sense too, because these are companies that have deployed hundreds of machine learning models. And when you do that, they need refreshes, they need updates. And so they need a lot of data to fuel that. And these companies know that the higher quality data that they use, the better off they'll be. Okay, so those were the highlights. I went through that kind of rapid fire, but hopefully you guys got the main points there. Before we get into questions, I did want to highlight a few things. So again, the report is on our website for download. We also have the ROI of high quality training data. So we did that report last year, and that's based on the same research, but it's a deeper dive into the ROI of training data piece specifically. We have that already available from last year, but the new one for this year is coming soon. The other points I wanted to raise here are we have a podcast. So our Chief Growth Officer, Phil Hall, interviews AI leaders from around the world. And we have 3 episodes live right now on our YouTube channel. So I highly recommend it. It's really great. I mean, just hearing perspectives from different people across the industry and their perceptions of generative AI, for example, regulations. The last one was with the program manager for AI for Pinterest. And she was talking about how startups should really think about data and some strategies that they can use to build their AI programs. And then I have my contact information here if you want to reach out to me for any reason, if you have questions about anything that I spoke about today, or if you want to maybe suggest a question for the next survey, you can feel free to do that. I can't guarantee that it'll make it in because we have a limited set that we can put into the survey, but I'm open to ideas because this is really for the ecosystem and for the community. This research is for all of you. It's really there to educate all of us on what's going on in the market. So with that, that's really it. And we can kind of open it up for questions.
Sure, happy to do that. And it's great to see so many AI enthusiasts self-identifying on the chat line. And we'll ask you, please just drop any questions you have into the comment section. They will be seen by everyone, but we'll pick them up and we'll answer them. So take a moment just to think of your question, either from the results or a question to Jody generally about AI training data trends. Jody, were there any surprises for you in this study, things that you didn't expect?
I would say the first was back to the chart that I had with the 8% growth. That was a bigger jump than I expected. And as I talked about, there is a margin of error there, but it was a pleasant surprise. I'm really excited to see the improvements in AI maturity, the growth across enterprises, and the fact that people are really continuing to invest here because they're seeing the value and they just want more of it.
Now, we know big companies are investing a lot of money in AI. Do you need to simply be a Google or a Meta to invest in AI, or is it now being more democratized that any company can essentially become a mature company?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely resources out there for everyone at every stage, and we work with companies that are startups that are bootstrapping products, all the way to largest tech companies in the world. But given some of the open source tools that are out there and models, I think that there's definitely opportunity for everyone. Um, you know, every company is struggling with things like talent, for example, as we all know, right? Talent in AI is tough. I think there's going to be challenges across the board for any size company, but the good news is that there are definitely ways for smaller companies to take advantage of this. So we have a question here. Did you see that?
I did,
Yeah.
from Nullinger, and I think it gets at the nub of the issue about high quality data, which is LLM models obviously going to be used with high quality training data, but how do you do that and maintain all your compliance obligations, whether they're data privacy, security, or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. And, I am not a compliance expert. So I just, yeah, I think that, yeah, that's one that I actually need to dive in deeper and understand myself. I mean, this is all kind of now coming to the forefront, and companies are, they're definitely all concerned with regulations, with GDPR and all of that. So I think that yeah, it's just something that I actually need to learn more about myself.
Well, while you have effectively the leaders of AI advocating unusually for self-regulation or advocating to work with governments on regulation, I think every company can put in place their own sets of guidelines, can't they? And I know that those are evolving rapidly, but it is a time to start putting some guidelines around things like ethics, transparency, data disclosure, use of data, etc. And it's a great time to have those conversations internally. Let me answer Bushra's question. It was a 15-minute survey. There were about 30 questions. Was there more interest in certain languages, Jody? I mean, obviously English tends to dominate internationally, but were there certain languages that showed more interest in AI, NLP, or others?
I think we have that data, but I don't have it at my fingertips, so I'd have to go look. I think we did ask about that though. If I remember correctly.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'd have to go and look. And sorry, Bushra, I don't have that at my fingertips.
No, but if you download the report, you will find that actually the bottom of pretty much every chart is the actual question that's used in the survey. So we have no problem sharing the questions used in the survey, but it should be actually part of the report underneath each chart. Dorothy asks, have you considered asking about trust with larger companies and using AI?
So we haven't focused on trust, but we did actually ask about responsible AI, and so that kind of goes along with that, and you'll find that in the report. And if memory serves, the good news is that companies are really thinking about that, and they actually think they're doing a good job. But there are a few questions in the survey on that, so I'd go ahead and look there.
I think one of the interesting things about that is that the more mature a company is, the more, if you like, honest it is about the fact that there are still trust issues that they need to address, that they haven't cracked it all and there are still ethical issues out there. Harry has asked, do you think companies that are AI mature will be building their own AI models, or will they essentially be just jumping on the open source bandwagon?
That, you know what? That's actually a great question for next time. Let's mark that one down, Lawrence.
Thank you, Harry.
Yeah, I'd like to know that. I'd like to know the answer to that myself. I think there are companies that definitely want to take advantage of things like GPT, but then they also realize that they've only been trained up to a certain date. I mean, it's only been trained up to 2021. And also, there's questions about the reliability of that data. So, yeah, I definitely want to know the answer to that. Thanks for helping us out.
Yep. And thank you. Keep those questions coming. That's really great. Let me ask you a question that I had about the failure rates. So you mentioned that actually failure rates are coming down. What was striking about that was that it was the failure rate in mature companies was half, I think 31% compared to you win it. Does that argue for fast failure, learning more quickly and actually failing more quickly to get to the use cases that really work? Seems like companies were throwing darts at many possible use cases in an effort to find out what worked and what didn't. But what's your take on failure rates and whether companies should embrace failure or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think fast failure is a good strategy. Yeah, I mean, I think that what we're really seeing here with the systemic and mature or systemic and transformational is just, once companies have actually gotten to operational, they have a system and a process that works, and so they're able to scale, and that's what we're really seeing there. And fast failure could be part of that. Not sure, but yeah, I think at this stage, if you're not trying to fail through AI, because your competition is, you've got to be moving in that direction. So I would say embrace fast failure because you need to get to operational as soon as possible. Your competition is there already, or they're putting all their resources to doing that because they understand that they need to prioritize AI at this stage.
So Bushra asks a follow-up question is, what is considered to be a failure? And I know this is self-reported data from the organizations themselves, but what do you think is meant by a failure in an AI sense?
I mean, for me, it's, that the AI just doesn't produce the desired outcome. So it doesn't operate as a user would expect, or it doesn't make the right predictions. And so there's probably, when you get to when you get to production AI, sure, there's still going to be some error potentially, but that error has come down quite a bit. All right, I think we probably want to wrap things up here quickly. So to give you guys, let you guys move on with your day.
Do you want to just summarize where people can find the report and how they can get in contact with you again, Jody?
Sure. So lxt.ai, we have a resource section. We have lots of great resources there, blog posts, etc. But you can go ahead and download the report and look for the next version in February of next year.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for attending today. I hope you've learned something useful, and we look forward to your comments on the next one. Thanks, Jody.
All right.
Thanks for your
everyone.
time today.
Have a great
Thanks
day.
for joining.
Take
Bye
care.
for now.
Bye-bye.